Chapter 6: How to implement it at the local level and global level. And I will add a small, an extra chapter with regional and national level. To better absorb the content of this chapter, it will be presented first an ideal perfect adoption of the B.E.T. By humanity globally and with both the resources and the knowledge to do it. However, because this does not address reality, one more example will be added, at least in accordance with different criteria, in order to tap a variety of issues according to the dimensions of the group adopting it and at the local level, and also at the national level. Ideally, humanity identifies the need to change and the inherent value of everyone in order to guarantee the future, focusing their duty towards achieving equal rights. One good starting place could be found on the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, and with some small but relevant adjustments and additions, specifically in what concerns to technological development, an equal basic income and the equal value of everyone, and the right of privacy, virtual or not, make it a law of humanity. Another important addition to it is identifying the major necessities of each region and tackle those with the alignment of the Maslow's pyramid of needs and the recent United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, in order to identify which are the specific developments needs of each region. At the same time, each place should share in an accessible platform the blueprints for how did they tackle some of the goals that are not affecting them at the present, in order to maximize the information on the topic to other groups and communities that need it at that time. During this process, it's possible to start to see the implementation of some basic concepts of the B.E.T. in what is regarded by the usefulness of specific information. However, so far, this seems mostly as a top-to-bottom implementation. However, the call to action is individually and community-based, closing the circle in how groups decide to implement the strategies, being these new strategies these new strategies already experimented strategies, or a mixture of multiple strategies presented in the CDG's platform. At this level, it is essential also to add to the platform multiple solutions of governing and group deliberation and decision, and access to experts and skilled trainers of anything needed by the groups. Attention that are the groups that identify the need for an expert, and everyone willing to share their expertise should be incentivized to do it. However, it is up to everyone to identify the usefulness of such shared knowledge, turning it into wisdom. These ways of self-governing will jumpstart the restructuring of democracy, and the access to experts and skilled trainers will jumpstart the revitalization of the education system. All these three databases will serve as the basis of humanity's bank of wisdom, which in turn work as a free-for-all deposit of human knowledge, that thanks to the perceived usefulness of the subject by everyone of the importance of the information shared, work as the gold standard of the B.E.T. economy. It is important to contextualize here four concepts. First, this is the creation of a spectrum of knowledge, and by this is meant that many people can share their expertise on a specific topic, and at the same time everyone find usefulness in different experts' knowledge sharing, making it harder for one person to become the full authority on a specific topic. Furthermore, every expert on the topic is allowed to judge other experts of the same topic if they found the use of that information harmful instead of useful. However, this harmful rate should be attached with a data report in which ways can be harmful, being the objective to find scientific consensus, but allow also some flexibility. The second concept is the notion of a gold standard expert. These are experts on something completely new but universally useful. One good example is Albert Einstein. However, in this case, because he's dead already, it should be like many other identified but not considered the ultimate representative. Third, expert sharers. Uh, Third, the concept is expert sharers. These are people that, even though are not experts on a specific topic, can simplify and present multiple topics scientifically, which can help science to reach to people that are not uh, educated enough, so they need someone to compartmentalize and make it easier for them to understand. Fourth is the concept of typology of knowledge, which can be theoretical if its knowledge is based on only upon theory, experiment, which is knowledge that is based upon experiment on specific theories. Practical, which is knowledge based upon practical cases, and applied, which is knowledge fully applied and in use. There is also the possibility to add three extra realms of typology of knowledge, which is fictional based upon fiction, abstract, which is based upon pure creation and instinct, and emotional, which is comprised and emotional reactions from and towards. So this was more technical and specific towards the databases documentation and for a purpose of clarifying how the structure could be built upon. So next, corporations and other non-governmental organizations will have a transition period to become more human-centered. However, because the ideal scenario supposes that all humanity understands and work together to achieve a better way forward, there are many ways for them to display the maturity and the responsibility in shaping the future, depending on how big they are, their location, and their line of work. First and foremost, there is the need for them to disclose completely how do they operate and in which branches of economy, for instance, if they produce fundamental needs and or resources, or if they provide significant social services, making this information essential for governing groups to better draw plans of development in order to allocate the resources needed to tackle the SDGs. This first process relies on a decentralization of these corporations' power. However, it is still worth noticing that this is easier in an ideal scenario than in reality. The biggest challenge regards for these corporations to cooperate instead of fight. However, in here relies one of the fundamentals of change adaptation. If all agree on the necessity of change, then it's fundamental for their own survival moving forward to adapt to what are the market needs. Now, according to their speciality, there are many specific actions that they can do, not only to remain relevant, but essentially, to be a part of the building of tomorrow. So, if a corporation provides food, based resources at the local level, for instance, they can present how much are they useful for this location to subsist. At the same time, help other groups in creating a more sustainable plan alongside their own expertise. Or how are they doing it? Furthermore, there is the possibility for better agreements in what regards with transportation, helping redesigning a more sustainable transportation network in accordance with the needs of the region in its demographics and geographic indexes, and even the construction of global resources map that ultimately will serve everyone. This global map of resources is detrimental towards the energy supply chain, being for this reason necessary the input of corporations that deal with energy production as well. The biggest issue concerns financial corporations and technological corporations for different reasons, but with similar solution. These corporations can play a fundamental part moving forward by cooperating with governing bodies in building the technological infrastructure needed to shape up the future for everyone and make it safe, secure, and private. One of the big concepts brought by the B.E.T is the concept that everyone can have their own virtually private individual bank of information, or as I call it, IBI. There are many ways to adapt and capacitate old infrastructures. However, because this is an ideal scenario, let's build it from scratch. First, it's necessary to have a private location to secure the information. So the idea is to build a new computer attached with its own secure server to be placed in everyone's home, giving that this issue has already been tackled. Basically, this server will work as a storage of information and should have input systems that allow everyone, independently of possible disabilities, to add their own information to it. At the same time, uh, also, it should have many ways to present its content through multiple output channels. Also, in order to make possible for different kinetic abilities to develop according to one's own capabilities. This hardware could be used to augment reality or to connect with multiple technological equipments, improving the possibility to generate a virtual space in reality that can be shaped by the individual to improve one's own life. This can also be used to more strongly capacitate individuals to take control of their surroundings and even potentiate the concept of the Internet of Things. Another potentiality regards the use of movable objects like the smartphone to help individuals have a bigger grasp on the information they use during their daily lives and store it in the bank whenever they please. Regarding the software capabilities, it would be important to understand that these would work as an individual assistant organizer, and for this reason should be built with at least three technological structures and at least four built-in features. The three technological capabilities are privacy through a blockchain structure, self-organization through a self-learning algorithm that would be molded by the specificities of the individual through time, and content mutable and flexible, easy to access to allow the individual to shape one's own knowledge in order to achieve both individual goals and global goals, made possible an understanding of the data mining. Also, the four minimum built-in features are a tree of knowledge, a social interrelation map, a virtual toolkit, and an economic input chart. There are also other features that can be added or even built by the individual according to one's interests and initiative that could also serve others and become shared wisdom. It's important also to have uh, a, a, a technological department that is willing to create bias-free content that would reshape, if necessary, if it's asked or needed by the user. So, Once this is available to everyone, it is possible for individuals to share knowledge between each other or even construct knowledge for themselves. The first allows others to find use on one's accumulated knowledge, augmenting one's own value through the need for new information. And the second allow one to have the time and mind to fully develop ideas, concepts, and even work on oneself without the pressure to survive and scavenge for survival needs. So, economic-wise, this would make possible to ensure a truly universal basic income based upon the amount of information generated by everyone that could be given at the end of a period defined by the individual. At the end of the day, week, month, or more or less, the total global generated accumulated information would be divided and would be transferred equally to everyone. Also, there is two ways to enrich oneself. The first is more commonly perceived, which is through the self-association with the group, being this corporative or not, by associating their objectives into one's objectives, or directly through the sharing of valuable information useful to a group or to everyone. Lastly, it is relevant to mention one last time the importance of the educational system in preparing and educating humans in the use of these technological tools so that they have a freedom of choice to become who they really are through a deep sense of one's own knowledge and the support of everyone by supporting others themselves and not contributing to the destruction of the ecosystem, making everyone a part of it instead. Basically, each and every one goal would be to better oneself and others, and the value would directly resonate in a more wise and cooperative society overall. Simply put it, in this scenario, humanity would jump from the age of information to the age of wisdom without the need to suffer from some of the possible consequences of the end of an era or passing through the hardships of building the age of knowledge. Well, some might argue that this idealization is utopic and unreachable. However, like all ideas, it is necessary to start somewhere, somehow, and this is simply put it a possible blueprint for how to do it today if we all agree that everyone has value and we are all willing to change in order to build the tools and the systems that free us instead of shackle us. If we understand this, then it's possible to try to implement it step by step, taking in consideration time and the reality of each place. So, this was the global implementation. Now I'm gonna do a small briefing on how to implement it locally. So first, let's define the minimum conditions to develop something that can eventually become the B.E.T system at the local level. And those are groups, communities, or municipalities well defined that believe that they can better their lives through the implementation and development of tools that will translate into the group's empowerment and emancipation through knowledge. This scenario is mainly constructed towards groups that have essentially met many of the sustainable development goals and are in a privileged position to undertake some experimentation and systemic change. However, there is the possibility to reframe these towards a deeper level where there are a lack of some needed infrastructures if it's taken into consideration the potential in starting from the ground up in such a way that allows for a better sustainable development design and newer creative solutions, and if allowed access to information to pick and choose from multiple examples already tested and proved functional. Second, it is necessary to understand that this group is not alone in needing to change. However, it is essential to have the initiative to search, build, and prove through action its wants and needs. And like other groups that have the will but not the capacity, it is fundamental to be transparent and keep record in order to eventually capacitate other groups that might want to develop themselves as well. Third and lastly, it is important to understand that through the eyes of the current system, many of the processes and initiatives will be perceived as being disruptive, which can produce some drag or even some backlash. And for this reason, it is essential the continuous accumulation of knowledge in order to capacitate themselves, yourselves, ourselves, with the information that can ultimately make the difference and strengthen their cohesion, our cohesion. Just to simplify it, if the group wants and is willing to change, it's because that is unlikely that it will get the full support from those in the current system, since they do not perceive the necessity to change. However, through the implementation of small but safe steps, will prove its own efficacy and eventually gather the support of other groups, and ultimately even a country through a coalition or like minded people in the support for the inherent human value and the will to change for the better. Also important to specify that this conceptualization searches for current applicable solutions, which can be directly connected with brands, organizations, corporations, or states in order to efficiently exemplify or demonstrate, being of most importance that the reader or the listener in this case do one's own research in order to make one's own mind and analytically and rationally find the solutions that can best serve one's own group, being the key factors information and the building of knowledge. Well, taking in consideration that the group has already access to some of the basic needs, such as an educative system, a governing body, healthcare system, electric grid, some basic resource production, and access to a communication network, it is essential to bring forward in which ways is the people that are a part of this community feel disbelief and lack of support. The objective is essentially to identify the maximum, if not all, the ways that the community is being neglected. To achieve this objective can be through technological means, if the group knows each other deeply, through a public assembly, if the group is strongly engaged, or through the building of grassroots movement. The best, but the most arduous way, since it might need to go door to door and engage with people directly. By taking this step, the group can start to build a network based upon preoccupation, skills, and level of engagement. It is important to understand that the level of engagement can change through time, being necessary to create some active link that helps people to keep in mind the possibility of change, mostly in the beginning, because there is nothing but the will. One good example is to use the social media, and a specific example can be the making of small stories about the people that are a part of the community. One direct example is Humans of New York. There, there are many other options that will promote engagement. However, this has the potential of not only reaches the objective, but also develop a basic component that will be essential along the line, which is the development of a system of communication with the added value of promoting transparency. Once there is a list of the preoccupations and concerns that affect the community, then there is the information that needs relevant action. And with the list of skills, it's possible to work out inside of the network which are the problems that can be immediately worked on. However, it is likely that these problems that can have immediate solutions are not general problems, and for this reason, it is essential to promote new ways of organizing in order to tackle the bigger problems and are probably more generalized, needing for that reason an organizational system that promotes equity and deliberation. One good example is the implementation of citizen assemblies. Citizens' assemblies are a method of group deliberation through sortition of a sample of the community, which allows the individuals to learn about a specific topic, hear and discuss the topic between each other, uh, experts and stakeholders deliberate on the topic, and finally make a decision through a report that can be automatically enacted or given to executive powers to hear about it and produce legislation or specific actions regarding what was decided. The three main advantages to apply this type of governing tools are the possibility for the people to get together, for the people to learn more about themselves and their surroundings, promoting cooperation, and for the people to have a voice on the future of their communities. The main objectives are to dilute the central power and approximate individuals of the decision process, and to provide individuals with the information that can help their community improve. This has been used by many organizations, communities, municipalities, and even governments in recent years with emancipating results. Regarding the B.E.T system, this governing tool has the potential to shift the balance of power from political parties and decision-making structures that possibly have little care for the community, which can bring some backlash and some attention as well towards what the community needs, and have the crucial aspect of creating in the community new knowledge about a topic that can be detrimental as it moves forward, with the extra consequence of giving responsibility to the individuals in the community to decide for themselves. Furthermore, there is this possibility in the long run to digitalize the whole process, which in the long run can contribute towards a more democratic and fair system in real time, making the community more efficient and faster to deliberate and make factual decisions. Another interest, this is necessary to be relied upon a very strong educational system. Another interesting tool that can be added that promotes initiative and also the emancipating is the participative budget. This tool has the characteristics of allocating a specific amount of the community budget to create a contest in which the individuals present specific well-structured ideas to put forward and improve the community's quality of life. This tool promotes engagement, but most of all, allow people to expose new ideas and concepts that could not be presented otherwise. In B.E.T terms, this is a simple process to elevate knowledge to wisdom through exposition and by identifying usefulness on a specific idea. Now that there is several new tools, I think there is another one which is a An event that promotes ideas, it's also a very a good concept, which is like a fair where people go and present multiple ideas, and during the time of the fair, some are decided to be implemented regionally. Now that there is several new tools that promote and create engagement in the community's decision making, is possible to start to tackle major issues. And from this point forward, it is necessary to understand that each community has their own problems and should design their action plan according to them. However, for this specific case, it will be presented a plan of action that, despite of creating some disruption, approximates the community to what can be reached at the local level in what regards the B.E.T system. First, it is important to understand that the plan of action can be produced by an individual, a group of individuals, politically known as a think tank, or even by citizens assembly. And if not by the last one, the citizens assembly can have the last word in approving it or not, which should be a most important step. For this reason, this example of a plan of action, it will be drawn by an individual to be approved by a citizens assembly. According to the B.E.T, information should be considered the most important resource that ultimately will create value towards all humans. So the ultimate goal should regard education and the educative system, because it deals directly with information independently of any other objective. It's of most importance that all the plan has the accumulation of knowledge throughout. Despite of this, learning is a continuous process, and information can only be found if the individuals are open to it. However, even if older generations have an harder time to embrace new concepts and ideas, there are always new generations willing to learn and capable to push the envelope forward. So for this plan of action, it will be proposed taking in consideration multiple concerns of the community, but with the long-term objective of capacitating the community to get broader and disseminated access to information through education. And for this reason, many of the concepts and objectives presented in the plan will have a direct and indirect line to teach both actual and future generations of the community to deal with it. And even though this plan regards the existence of citizens' assemblies, one interesting action to implement it or afterwards, it's to bring this to schools and universities, at least to create an introduction to it, or if possible, even create a mock experiment on how would they work. For this community, the list of concerns are the economy, and this is just an example. So for this example community, the list of concerns are, for example, the economy, the lack of jobs, the aging population, and the escape of youth, the climate change, and the loss of quality of life and relevance in the region, for instance. So the proposed plan needs to tackle all of these issues directly or indirectly. To get closer to the B.E.T system, the plan of action proposes then three short-term actions: pathway to digitalization, and to create a portfolio of value of the city, and expand local production of food. It proposes two medium-term actions: the implementation of local cryptocurrency and to achieve a carbon neutrality and energy independence, and finally a couple of long-term actions: the creation of an investigation institute, a university, and the fixation of a multinational corporation. These goals do not represent time frames, but instead the time that is needed to work on them to be achieved. The short-term goals go in line with the capacitation of all generations to use new technologies. A direct example is what is happening in Estonia. that should be easy to teach and at the same time reduce the bureaucratic weight of the community and create a digital infrastructure that allows all individuals to display direct needs and skills in order to create a network capable to operate independently but at the same time together. Also, in this platform can be introduced valuable assets and needed specialities for those outside to know what are the specificities needed um, right now and in which way they can contribute. These objectives will have the purpose of stop the escaping of youth and educate the community in the use of new technologies and local production. The medium-term goals seem a little bit far-fetched, however, are directly connected with the previous goals and tackling other concerns at the same time. The implementation of a local cryptocurrency has the objective of creating an internal economy, and nowadays it's quite easy to create one. For example, Ethereum server. However, this creates a multitude of opportunities that will tackle can change many dynamics in the short and long run. One of these opportunities is the creation of general the dividend to be equally divided by everyone, the possibility to pay for a bureaucratic services and even local products with this local coin, the capacity to retain value locally, the possibility for the individuals to be paid for the use of the platform, and even possibly create a local basic income, or at least a fraction of the normal income. The carbon neutrality and the energy independence could be achieved by two ways. The first is through investment and the local electric on the local electric grid with subsidies of solar or wind energy. The second can be through the implementation of SMRs, um, uh, which are small modular reactors. However, is necessary to rephrase the importance of the citizens' assembly to discuss this and all the matters in order to achieve the best outcome for the community. However, whatever the process chosen, there is a lot to gain with energy independence, specifically in what is regarded in the attraction of external investors and stakeholders that can bring diverse multinational interests and in not paying the electrical bill. A direct example is the diversity of corporation interested in working in Iceland. The long-term um, goals regard the importance of education and creation of job opportunity. However, it is necessary to understand that the multiple short and medium-term changes that occur created a shift from outflux to influx and attracted attention of new people interested in being a part of the community. Furthermore, by localizing a new investigative institute, it's possible to attract people with higher education that can be a part of the community in the most diverse way, opening the door to further development along the line. One consequent objective that can have multiple implications and can improve significantly the interest, the external interest um, in the specific objective that this institute can have, like the study of theoretical physics or other. However, thanks to the recent development, it would be interesting to redirect the objectives towards technological improvement. And since one of the ideas promoted by the B.E.T system regards servers, it would be interesting to add to this institute the possibility to have a local source server. By adopting these measures, this community is on its way to be self-sufficient, self-deciding, and closer to the B.E.T system. At the same time, can redirect its progress towards other communities and present their own blueprint in order to improve other places. Once these measures are implemented in more communities and other places start to identify the value of these implementations, there is an effect that occurs that can be perceived as a protocol chain reaction. This concept can be seen in the weed legalization frenzy, in the adoption of the Paris Accord, and even recently in the application of measures to stop the spread of the coronavirus. So, um, now the idea is to understand this globally, locally, and now I'm gonna try to put forward a draft of how to do it nationally. So if you have a country that it's in need of rapid development, but is still under it's still it still needs a lot of infrastructures. This is not a deterrent. In fact, it's a potential because it means that many of the infrastructures that are needed can be redesigned and rethought. So, because there are already many of ideas that and many structures that already exist, the idea is to, so for example, if you need in a country that is underdeveloped, you need a new highway, so you can already think of this highway in another term. So for example, how can this highway be also a producer of energy, for example, or how can this highway be also connecting not only city to city, but um, uh, other kinds like industries or even specific places. This is the way to think forward sustainably. So it's not to think about one solution for one problem, but instead to think about a multitude of solutions in when you have one problem, you understand that you need to fix other things as well. So by having this potentiality, this means that all the investment that is needed needs to be smart investment. So it's a kind of investment that instead of just being on doing for the sake of it, is in fact bringing something more, something that will create and generate real value for your community. So, uh, like all of these that I've been talking to you so far, my opinion is to always look at education and information gathering as the two main concepts. So if you always tackle these two together, if you imagine, if you bring the objective is to create an highway, so the objective needs to be how much information it's going to pass through this highway, how much information is going to be bring from one place to another, and what is the need for that information to go from one place to another. And this can be in the term of one individual that has a lot of information, or a lot of people moving towards one place to another and the information building from that. So always think in these processes and always have the opportunity to add a little bit more in the objective to gather and construct more information that can be factual and also enrich and ultimately create wisdom to your regions and to everybody alongside it. Okay, this is the end of the videos. I'm gonna add one last one, which is the conclusion. It's a very small one, so hope you enjoy it. And I hope this was useful.